Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get started in just a minute. We're going to let everybody get in from the waiting room. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Maggie Bittner, and I'm the head of education for SIA. Today, we're talking about how technology can assist you in this uncertain time. As we don't have a clear picture of what the upcoming buying season is going to look like, we'll be talking with 3 panelists who have already been through the summer season and hope to learn from them. Next week, we'll be hosting a series of sessions so you can learn about some of the available platforms that will be used throughout the fall and winter to assist you in doing business. Whether you're a supplier, rep, or retailer, these are technologies you should be familiar with. Please check out our website, snowsports.org/education, to see the schedule and sign up. Special thanks to our moderator, Kristin Carpenter, CEO of Verde Brand Communications and host of the Channel Mastery podcast. We're happy to welcome her back leading this discussion. Today's discussion is called What's Working Today for the Virtual Sell-in and Buying Process. I'm happy to introduce our panelists who will share what they've learned and their plans for approaching the upcoming season. We have Dana Caraway, Principal of Caraway and Company, Darren Ferguson, Director of Global Commercial Operations for Arc'teryx Equipment, and Linda Rodney, North American Sales Manager for Giro Snow. This town hall will be a conversation between our panelists. We encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A tool that's at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to answer them at the end if time permits. I'm going to turn it over to you now, Kristin.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much to the Snowsports Industries of America, SIA, for hosting yet another awesome town hall panel on a topic that I know is something that we are all obsessing over, whether we do that secretly or in conference rooms or on Zoom calls. We're talking about today what is working for virtual sell-in and the buying process as it evolves through 2020. And it is, again, such an important topic. COVID obviously changed everything we've known about launching a season. From inventory management to our technologies that we had to test and learn, which we're going to be talking a lot about today, to create virtual sales meetings and assets for reps to use to sell into buyers, to the sales meeting itself, to all the reps being resourced with what they needed to get the job done, let alone clinicking. It is all new. And while that is a little bit fatiguing, there's a huge opportunity in all of this, which is what today's panel is all about. We are now in fall 21, and we have some experts from spring 21 and who have really been close to this process, managing several brands, if not a lot of brands in Dana Caraway's case, get through this process and create a new best practice, which will evolve. The goal of our time together here today is to give you actionable strategies and good insights to try so that you can cut some corners and maybe not make the mistakes that many of us have putting together what we have done to get business done in spring 21. So know that we're going to do everything we can to deliver value, and that even if we don't get to your questions, as always, I will answer those questions myself and send them out via email if we have to. But just know there will not be a question that will go unanswered after this, because I know this is a topic that is really keeping people awake at night. So just know that we're going to discuss technologies and methodologies that are being deployed now, as well as the evolutions that will likely remain as part of doing business going forward, including some key consumer behavior changes. And I know that SIA will be posting another consumer behavior report this week in their newsletter. Okay, so obviously we've met all the panelists. I'd like to thank them all for being here, and we're just going to go ahead and dive right into the questions. So I'd like to start by talking about technology. Obviously, Maggie kicked off the webinar here today by talking about that and foreshadowed next week's town hall resource that will obviously give you a deeper insight into some of the B2B technologies being used. But ultimately, those technologies also include how we capture and created video and shared that with our teams. And so why don't we start with that? And Linda, your brand Giro obviously went through the selling process on bike earlier this year with a global sales meeting, and also, you know, the various clinicking and ways that you resourced your reps. I'd love to start with you to talk about what you learned from that side of the business that will shape what you're doing for Giro Snow going forward.
Thank you, Kristin, and thank you for having me. Hello, everyone out there in SIA land. Yes, I was very fortunate as I run the snow side of our sales, and I could watch our bike team maneuver through shelter in place, trying to plan a global sales meeting. And the tools available to us today are fantastic, which is great news. And they were able to develop some videos without being in front of any videographer. It was all done remotely. And we executed a global bike sales meeting the first week of June. This involved having a global introduction meeting and then followed up with some Q&A, and we sent out a lot of tools so that the reps could prepare ahead of time and have their questions ready. Some of the takeaways that we have found very, very important is, number one, having respect for our buyer and shop owners or whoever is making these decisions, and what do they feel most comfortable with. We've got tools prepared to virtual, tools prepared to do Zoom calls, tools prepared to go into the stores and see them if need be. But again, most importantly was respecting the safety and the health and what they felt comfortable with, and also respecting their time. So in terms of execution for snow, based on that, we've got a lot of different things in place so that we can be very, very nimble, very flexible, and see what the season brings. Nobody knows. Everything is constantly changing. But we'll be prepared for virtual presentations. We'll be prepared for Zoom calls. We'll be prepared to set up showrooms or hotel shows if need be. And of course, prepared for any kind of trade shows that may or may not happen. So again, just making sure that our buyers are getting what they need, when they need, and in the most appropriate way for them to feel comfortable.
Thank you. And one thing I wanted to just quickly ask before we hop over to Darren, Linda, can you also talk a little bit about just the emphasis on customization that you're trying to build in, learning from what you did in spring 21 for your reps from the assets you're creating?
Right. One thing that was really important to us and to our entire sales force was that our buyers are used to seeing a rep give a presentation, and no one knows their business better than the rep that is working with them on assortment plans. So we've tried really hard to incorporate assets that the reps can use, but still customizing their presentations for each of their buyers. And this also helps to respect the time. You know, some buyers don't need to see every single model. Some people know the models really well. They just want to see the new. So we could be very respectful to time and keep it customized and really keep the personality of each of our reps involved with their buyers.
Awesome, thank you. So Darren, obviously being with Arc'teryx, we're all familiar with the quality of visual presentation. You really hold the bar, if you will, and I would love for you to share what you learned from your earlier season, warmer season selling cycle versus kind of the more, you have more at stake, you mentioned in our rehearsal call. Tell us what you're going to be graduating forward to really help your fall 21 selling process be as solid as it can be.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me. You know, we started in fall, or pardon me, in spring, with the challenge of really going from relying on in-person selling and that first-person product experience with a sample to going to fully virtual showings. And you know, first thing we tackled was how do we actually engage with the buyer. So we settled on using Zoom as a tool that was accessible across multiple platforms, whether it's an iPhone, Android, Mac or PC. Most buyers or most people are familiar with it. And so we started with that as a starting point, and we're going to continue that in fall 21. We feel like the experience was good, it was consistent, it's user-friendly, and all those things are important for a buyer who is potentially using, a plethora of different platforms from different brands, just trying to make their life easy with a platform they're relatively familiar with, and that's user-friendly. But one thing that really quickly became apparent to us is that our traditional method of selling using salesman samples was not going to be effective in a Zoom environment. So you can imagine trying to hold up a physical sample on this little tiny box screen. You're not going to be able to get the depth or the appreciation for the product. And so things like having a strong B2B sales tool, we use New Order, but we've had for a long time. But that tool, things like photo assets, CAD images, videos, we'd always looked at those as being relatively supporting tools. And so the sales and sample being sort of the main tool that we would use. And those things really quickly became the forefront and became essential. And so we had to make some pretty quick pivots in how we build those tools at the start of the season to be able to get good quality images of our products produced because of a lot of the factory shutdowns earlier in the year in places like China, in Vietnam, other places where we produce a lot of samples. Things were coming in late, so we didn't have as much lead time to be able to do professional photos or videos that we would normally would have wanted to do. And so we had to, start off in very humble ways with some of our reps even taking iPhone photos, using good lighting and sending those in for doctoring so that we could actually get those up onto our B2B platform and be able to format them. It was interesting experience because again, the reps were going through this in real time. So they're receiving samples, we're getting our B2B system set up, we're getting Zoom set up, we're creating these assets and trying to make them available so that the rep can bring them to the buyer in a way that makes sense for that account. Because not every account wants to see things in the same way or wants to work in the same way. And so they were adapting on the fly. But I think, acknowledging that and just being open and transparent with the buyer right from the outset was really important, just to say, hey, look, this is where we're at. This is what we're trying to do. Let us know how we can help you. Was really important just to kind of framing that conversation. We're all in this together. People were really receptive to it, and the feedback from our reps and our buyers by the end of the season was pretty positive. We've learned a lot of things, and I think the most important thing that we learned, aside from having the right tools, is really making sure that you invest in those impactful video and visual assets. Having good quality images right now when we're selling virtually is just absolutely critical.
You had mentioned that actually even made a difference in terms of your pre-order volume as well.
Yeah, we're definitely where we used CAD images versus maybe an iPhone or a lower quality image versus a proper professionally shot HD image. We could definitely see where there was an impact there for sure.
That's awesome. So I feel so fortunate to have Dana Caraway, who's the founder and principal of Caraway and Company. So Dana, can you give us just a quick soundbite on your agency in terms of the number of the brands you serve and your sub reps? The reason I thought it'd be great to have Dana join us is she basically is dealing with a bunch of brands, obviously on behalf of her buyers. And I wanted to provide a bird's eye view, if you will, in terms of what it's like to work with multiple brands and what some solutions she discovered were.
Great. Thanks everyone for having me on the town hall. I'm really excited to be a part of this. I have an agency in the West Coast. Lucky enough to have a fantastic team of 10 on the team. We are proud to represent 10 different brands in the outdoor, surf, and fashion market. So we get a fun little mix in our agency. So definitely, I keep saying this, and I'm going to say it. If I get a tattoo this year, I'm just going to say pivot. So no matter what, because that's what we're doing. First of all, back to Linda's point of the buyer and the owner's time is so valuable to them. One of the things we had to realize with everything going on is This year, we might not be speaking to the same buyer. Unfortunately, they may have been furloughed. So what we really wanted to come into this is understanding that, you know, we're back working with the owners and it's super fun, but they may not have been as close to the product the past few years as they had in the past. The other thing is talking about the platforms. I know our team uses at least, I'm going to say 7 different platforms. With all of our brands, and now we had to be sensitive to, you know, the owner and or buyer using way more than 7 out there. You know, we use New Order, we use Envoy, we use Elastic, we have our own proprietary from our brands. So there's a lot of different platforms that our buyers and owners are using nowadays. And then let's add on also their environment and their time that, you know, they're in the shop, they're working the floor. They're now going to be doing the buying maybe, you know, at home at 7 o'clock at night, and what their technology and their accessibility to all that is. So it was definitely a learning experience for all of us. I think what we came out with communication, make it simple, make it simple. So just kind of talking about the few areas that I call it kind of a 3-prong thing that we did is, first of all, our brands did everything they could to get us the resources, the videos. You know, we had to understand that some of our brands couldn't even get into their location to shoot anything, or the samples were late. So they did everything they could to give us the resources. Early on, what our team actually had decided was to whatever they gave us, if it was a brand and a video that we could use, fantastic, we're going to use it. But then what we found is that we also wanted to make sure, you know, as Linda and Darren also said, that, you know, we want to give our own special sauce. We know our buyer, we know what they're looking for. We know, you know, they know our bad jokes. We want to make sure that we're there for them. And so we actually went out to Henderson where my business partner has our headquarters, and in his hot garage, we hired a videographer and we videoed the line. So a professional video, we took that. And then the next step that we took was, again, back to being simple, knowing that our buyers and owners are getting emails from all of our brands, all of our reps coming into their inbox. So we decided to invest in our website. And we actually created our own platform on our website to host all of our multiple brands. Information that they had given us. So the buyers only had one password to get in there. And the great thing about that is that they can utilize this throughout the season, not only the buy-in, but, you know, maybe they weren't able to get the order written right away. They can go back later and watch the video. The other thing was back to the point that the buyers and the owners might be actually, you know, seeing the line after hours. So again, we want to make them short, easy to digest, and just do that. And then of course they would, you know, utilize the platforms that they're comfortable with to write the order. So that was what we decided on as a agency. We definitely use Zoom like everybody else. And what I definitely want to recommend on the Zoom calls is definitely have good lighting. Think about that. Definitely think about your environment when you're showing it. We rented a studio to try to do our Zoom calls in. And also talk to, back to the communication, making sure that your owner buyer has the technology. Did they download Zoom or Blue Jean or whatever they're using? Also making sure you're on the same time zone. There's, you know, you might be in, you know, the Rockies and we're in Pacific, and making sure you have the same time zone going. It's just that extra partnership throughout the sell-in. And then I think Darren and Linda also spoke about the workbooks and digital assets. The coolest thing I found this season is how everybody came together and collaborated. We had one rep group working on the digital catalog. The second sample would come in, they'd do an on-body shot and upload it to the digital catalog. We did find back to the environment that our buyers and owners are in, is they might be in their home and they might not have 2 monitors. So we, as environmentally friendly as we want to be, we also felt that actually having that hard copy of the catalog was super helpful this season, just depending on their environment, seeing the line.
I think that's awesome. And that, that is something that we have to think about in terms of just, it may not be what we do forever, but it's what we do right now. And it turned out to be a great tool for them, helps them manage their follow-up and everything else. So that's all great. And so that we're basically taking this almost sequentially. We're going through, sort of the shock and awe of, oh my gosh, how do I do this from a technology standpoint? And now we're going to go into the shock and awe of managing inventory. So I don't mean to make light of this, but in some ways we have to, right? Like we're all in this together, as Darren said. And so we're going to talk about that next. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of kick this off by, talking about just the fact that there's a little bit of an 800-pound gorilla in the room in terms of knowing that we are really struggling with spring 21, fall 21, the state of consumers being able to access this product. So Darren, I know you're delighted that I'm starting with you on this one, but I'm going to. So can you talk about some of the ways that your team successfully navigated its way through, or continues to try to, because it's a process, right? With what you're doing at Arc'teryx.
Yeah, I would say that we're a long way from finishing that navigational process. I think we'll likely be the end of next year before we're all through that. But where we're at today is where I think a lot of brands are. We have a lot of carryover product. We've extended a lot of models through next season in order to make sure that we can move through it and that retailers can move through it. Just the realities are that there's production limitations in a lot of the factories that we rely on, and in the apparel industry, I'm sure it's the same in whether it's a gear or footwear industry as well. And the reality is we're going to have to live with this glut of inventory that a lot of retailers are sitting on, that a lot of brands are sitting on. There's challenges to that, no question, but I think there's also some opportunity there. And one of the opportunities is that with a amount of inventory sitting in warehouses, we can be more flexible with timing, with responding to consumer demand. And so, I don't think it's worth looking at the inventory situation without considering what the possible opportunities are. Right now, if you're primarily a fall ski retailer, it's very likely that you have significant inventory because you weren't able to clear out in March and April like you probably normally would have. The ski season, at least here in the North Shore of BC, was cut short really by 6 weeks at least, maybe even 8 weeks depending on the year. And so there is going to be a lot of inventory there. That means that potentially you can get a jump on the season. Hopefully there's inventory in warehouses with your suppliers that can help fill in size gaps, that can help you go to market in the next season with complete sizing, complete assortment. But that product is there, and certainly if there's an opportunity to get a jump on the season and sell that product early, or get your store merchandised early, if that's a possibility for you, that could be an advantage.
That's great. So Dana, I would love to tap into your expertise in terms of what you experience, because I know you really work in close partnership with your buyers to help them with their merchandising and kind of arranging the theater of the brand, if you will, for them. So can you talk a little bit about how your team managed inventory with your brands and with buyers?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kristin. Well, I think, obviously, just like Darren had said, there was a lot of carryover into, I'm just talking selling into spring 21. And it was actually beneficial for us. What was great about it was, a lot of our buyers did not get their product. So we were able to, and it was, our PLMs, the brands did a great job of taking what didn't move forward and re-merchandising it and moving it into the next season. So actually it was a benefit for us because as we were selling the line, we were talking about a style that the buyer was like, oh my gosh, I remember that, I really wanted to come in. And so what was great about that is they could go ahead and place it on the order again and also have a little bit of freshness to it. also stating that we definitely did look at core product. And I know a lot of people, you know, just being conservative, you want to go with your best sellers. So what I would get some emails saying like, hey, Dana, can you write my order? You know, throw the core on there and just do some fun directional styles, you know, to freshen up the floor. And so oddly, it was actually a benefit this season to have the carryover.
That is a little bit of a surprise. And I forgot to put a fantastic quote. I'm not sure, Darren, if you said this or not, but nothing great is achieved without the possibility of failure. That's the slogan for the entire fall 21 season. He shared that with us in the rehearsal. So I thought it would be amazing to share it here as well. Take chances, be bold, and manage risk. So with that, Linda, tell us what the state at Giro Snow is.
Well, not only for us as a supplier, but all of our dealers, our retailers, inventory management is the key to your bottom line. And whether sales are phenomenal or sales are challenged, it's how we manage our inventories at the end of the day that get us that ultimate bottom line that we also desperately need. A couple things that, if you go back to January, when we were all concerned about COVID in Asia and our factories shutting down, at that point in time, we weren't even thinking about COVID hitting the US and what March and April were gonna look like. So I started placing bigger January orders, pulling up my March and April dollars so that I could hedge my bets on factories being slow to reopen. So with that said, I do have a great supply of product coming in for a normal season. So let's hope and cross our fingers that we have a normal season. The second thing we did is we were also in the midst of finalizing our model year 22 line. So we really look closely at our best booking styles in January, which we're just starting to book, and kept those in the line so that we've got a lot more carryover product going into model year 22. And what this will do is allow our buyers to take some risk and to be able to stock up on products that they know will carry into the following year if the season doesn't turn out the way we want it to. The other thing, I'm really being cautious with my buyers and making sure that they have what they need when they need it, because I would rather own the inventory in my factory, in my warehouse, and be able to control what happens with our margins and our bottom line. The thing we need as an industry is for a race to the bottom on pricing and on promotional. It'll be really devastating to us as an industry. So maintaining those margins is super important. And the third thing is, by having a lot of excess inventory in some of the carryover styles, now our buyers don't feel that risk that they might be feeling otherwise, and we can really chase the business. It's going to be a chase season, and I'm confident it's going to snow and optimistic that we're going to have a great season. So we're prepared to do everything in our power to chase that business and maximize the opportunities.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I am visualizing as well. So now we're going to go into the topic of the virtual sales meeting. It kind of brings together the first two places we were and pushes it forward into kind of the future that we try and present for our stakeholders when we all get together. So once again, Darren, I'm going to start with you. So I would love to hear the tools that you use, some of the ways that you with technology you presented, and then some of the things that you found were really exceptionally helpful in terms of running a virtual sales meeting.
Yeah, we use Brand Live for our Spring 21 sales meeting, and we'll continue that practice for Fall 21 as well. We found that platform was really effective. We were able to adapt it really easily to our needs. We were able to get all the content we wanted into it, and it gets a great experience for our remote sales teams and our remote regional teams to be able to get that content and basically access it on their own schedule. One of the things that we learned from this past fall or spring sell-in was that you need to account for more time than you think. So we originally had budgeted about a week for all of our reps and our regional teams to go through that sales meeting content. And the feedback was that it just wasn't enough for them to be able to self-pace it and be able to digest it. I mean, people like to be able to watch things more than once or go back and revisit certain sections. And so we had sort of bookended our time with some pre-planned live Q&A sessions with our product management team, our design team, so that the reps would be able to ask questions and get some live actual interaction and answers. And so there was a relatively hard deadline for everyone to kind of digest that information. And the feedback was they would have appreciated having maybe another week. So for fall, we're going to actually extend that to a 2-week window. But the good thing is that the feedback on having the live Q&A was that was the most impactful part of the meeting for the reps. I mean, having the pre-read information and being able to digest that was very valuable. The fact that they can go and revisit it and they can reference it back to it at any time is great, but there's no substitute for being able to actually talk to somebody and ask a question and get an answer right then and there. So we're going to continue and we're going to try to expand on that idea of having live Q&A sessions as much as possible with different groups within the company. The other thing that we're adapting right now is, we've traditionally had different tools and assets for sales meeting versus for sell-in. And so knowing that right now, efficiency and time are a factor for almost all of us, we are trying to, as much as possible, build our sales meeting content to make it relevant also for a buyer. So really taking that buyer first point of view and building out that content so that when we have whether it's a product video, whether it's a tech sheet, whether it's information on how to use our B2B system, that information is geared toward a buyer so that the reps can immediately take the information and either share that content directly with their accounts if that's relevant, or at least they've got the information in a way that they can immediately sort of translate back. The great thing about doing that is it also makes that information relevant for training on for teams. You can really start to leverage sort of efficiency and building these things out. Then you have consistency across whether it's the reps, the buyers, and eventually the sales teams on the retail floor as well.
You bring up 2 really fantastic points that I think are going to be sticky as we move forward through this, and that is the consistency that these technologies that helped us build virtual experiences will bring to our businesses going forward.
Yep.
So with that, Linda, I'd love to have you walk us through the fall 21 sales meeting that Giro Snow is planning after you kind of riding shotgun, if you will, earlier this year on the bike side.
Right. Yes, I was very fortunate to be able to learn from our bike business. And the thing I learned from the bike sales meeting, it was fabulous. And everyone was so grateful for the amount of information that they got, but also the amount of time that they got back in their lives by, not having to travel to a sales meeting. And, not having a physical sales meeting certainly saved us some resources that we could then invest back into the tools we need to go with our virtual presentations, whether it's filming, whether it's photographing product, but those things all have a cost to them. And we were able to recoup some of those costs from a pricey sales meeting. Certainly there's nothing better than the camaraderie at a sales meeting. And with the Zoom call, we still will be able to have all of our reps on the call at the same time and at least see each other. And we'll start with a global sales meeting like we did with Bike, launching our marketing strategies, launching our graphic stories, which are new and really important to the brand. And then break into a few product updates with new technologies on just the new products. Then after that, to our presentation, we're going to send all of the information to the reps so they then have time to digest all of that and really spend some time where in a couple-hour presentation at a sales meeting, it's all new and they see it, but they don't have time to digest it. And that's one thing we learned from the bike meeting, and as Darren said too, giving the reps time to look through everything and kind of learn the line, and then having that opportunity for the Q&A. And that will follow up a couple days later. So we should have everybody ready to go to market through our virtual meeting. And then the beauty of having all of that prepared is that, again, as Darren said, we can then utilize all of those assets in building our presentations that we'll take to market for our buyers later on.
That's great. Okay, Dana, your turn. You obviously had, I think in your pre-COVID life, sales meetings definitely gobbled up a lot of your time and windshield time. Talk about this year. What was it like for you and your team at Caraway and Company navigating the sales meeting season?
I loved them. You know, we have a joke. It was like, you know, we actually have sales meeting season. So yeah, I mean, we're on a month or so going to sales meetings, you know, and what would happen is one of my team members would go to one, another one would go to another. So a lot of times we had to divide and conquer. What was so great about this is we were all together. We all got together, and thank you for, you know, both Linda and Darren saying, giving us the time to digest it, to think about it. Our team would get together and talk about it. So it really gave us the time to get more aware and have really good quality questions when we came back, because we had the time to think about it. Where's this going to go? What's the strategy here? How are we going to, you know, whatever the directional marketing is this season, how are we going to do that? So I felt like it was the best use of our time. And Linda, you even mentioned cost. I mean, the cost of, you know, the cost of the brands and the cost of the reps flying everywhere. That was huge. My team used a lot of different, we already kind of spoke about all the different platforms, everything from Brand Live to Zoom to Vimeo to all the different platforms. So we had a handful of platforms to work off of. But everybody came back and just said that was the best use of our time this season.
That's amazing. I mean, obviously we all miss seeing each other, and camaraderie is super important, as we all know. That's, I think, one of the reasons we're in the communities that we're in. However, we keep coming back to time and leveraging our time, leveraging our reach. It's interesting. I'm not saying like, isn't this great in every way, but I'm saying there actually have been some things that have come through here that are really, I think, going to make us more collaborative and also using our time more wisely going forward. And maybe a new 80-20 is going to emerge in terms of how we're serving our buyers as their role continues to shift and change. One of the things, Dana, that you mentioned in the rehearsals that we had done is that you really loved the way that your brands had moved to simple terms and packages for the season. And I would love to hear from both Darren and Linda in terms of how your brands help to simplify the process, because I think this is something that will be really important for our audience to take away today. Whichever one of you would like to dive in. Oh, you're on mute.
I'll dive in. No, seriously, truly having simplified programs when you don't have as much time to sit with a buyer and go through, you know, a long list of topics. We want it simple, quick, and easy. And the B2B sites, I think, for every company are becoming a very, very important tool. And we've done some enhancements to our B2B site to make that process a lot simpler. And, you know, without multiple trade shows, maybe we'll get orders quicker this year. But the nice thing is that people can go back to a virtual tool and review it and listen to it again and look at their assortment plans and have the opportunities to think through that a little bit more than maybe a 1-hour presentation that they're getting in at a trade show. So
awesome. How about you, Darren? And by the way, we have to have at least one person be on mute when they're called on. It's just a rule of every Zoom call. So.
Well, now we've checked that box now, so we're good.
Thank you.
So no problem. Happy I can help. Yeah, you know, I'm gonna go back to something that I said earlier, which is, you know, I think when we're trying to make the buyer's life easier, the first thing that we need to do is just start by having a conversation with the buyer about how exactly we can help them. Because no one's better positioned to know what they need or what they want than they are. So, I mean, you know, both Dana and Linda have made some really good points about the challenges that buyers are going to be facing, whether it's being back in directly buying for the first time in a number of years, or just being, short of team members having to, split their time between managing the business, buying, and running their sales floor. I mean, respecting their time is going to be super important. And so I think just starting the sales process by having a conversation about, hey, how can we help you? Can be a really powerful way to just set the right tone. And then from there, to Linda's point, having a really good B2B sales tool experience, something that is easy to shop, that's easy for your team to get their assets into, that's a good centralized place that the buyer can go for information and be able to easily place their order and do it in a time frame that makes sense for them, and in a way that makes sense for them is going to be super important. Dana also made a really good point about simplifying terms, and I really agree that in a normal year, a lot of our companies have relatively complex terms packages that are meant to drive certain behaviors or certain assortments within that store. And you can sit in a meeting with your buyer and you can work through that with them face to face and make it all make sense and put it together. And that's not going to be the case this year for a lot of buyers and reps are not going to be able to sit together and work through it. So having something that the buyer can navigate on their own, at 6 o'clock at night after their dinner is done, or at 10 o'clock after the kids have gone to bed, is going to be super important. And then of course, back to the B2B point, being able to then translate that easily into an actual order. That's going to be the most important thing.
Fantastic. Dana, you had already kind of weighed in on this, but did you have anything that you wanted to add in terms of maybe one or two insights that you gained from your buyers in terms of just their show of gratitude for like making it easy on this part of the equation? Because I think that that's important to note.
I mean, I think it's, again, just being patient with all of us, having that communication. Yeah, I mean, just understanding we're all trying to work through this the best we can. And we're, as Karen said, we're all in this together, and, it's hard, but we're human. We have to laugh at what we're all dealing with sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we're kind of rounding up here to leave time for questions, I wanted to make sure we talked about something that truly makes specialty retail, I think, really operate successfully, and what will, I think, in the future define that even more so. And that is the experience of clinicking. I mean, really bringing that strength of the rep relationship, the brand understanding, the community within the store that they're selling to, and really just the experience of understanding, through a rep's expertise or even through a brand's expertise coming through a rep, what it means to actually like sell this product and put some experience behind that. So I thought that would be a really strong place to end, because it truly is so specialty and so all about what we are. And Linda, I'd love to start with you, because Giro has a special new tool it's launching on September 1st. So that's Tuesday of next week. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, in all honesty, I really, back in April, thought that we might be completely done with all of this by this time. And while my sales meeting in November was not first and foremost on my mind, and trade shows in January was not on my mind, but clinic time was on my mind, because that happens, September 1st, our snow reps hit the road hard, and they're getting into shops all across the country. And as you all know, in the snow industry, we have a lot of seasonal employees. Our season's very, very short. It's not a year-round business. And so there's always a lot of new faces in those stores every fall. And it's really important that we all get in and educate them and help them understand how to sell very technical products. So that was my biggest concern heading into this fall. And we're utilizing a tool called Brand Centric, which will be set up with videos and clinic tools. But as I go back to what I said very early on in this call, it's really important that our reps are involved in this and are the face of the brand, because that's who the shop knows. And I think more than ever, what we've taken away from this pandemic is the true value of family, of community, of relationships. And more than ever, we want to make sure that every shop kid out there feels a part of this industry, and that they feel like we as brands, their buyers, their owners, and everyone is around them supporting them. So this will be a great tool. Like I said, it'll have some video aspects that are driven by our product managers with very technical information, as well as some presentations with some of our graphic stories and how our line came to be. But then also our reps putting their own spin on it and not taking up a lot of time, but really focusing on the assortment that's in their stores, so they know how to sell it, they know how to add on, how to suggestive sell, and how to really maximize the sale. And again, maximize the time of the consumer, because they don't want to be in that shop any longer than they have to either. So we're excited about this, and my sales force will be seeing it on a kickoff call that we've got coming up.
That's fantastic. Dana, I'm going to ask you about this, because obviously the clinicking piece is so important in terms of you being the bridge from brand to buyer and buyer to community. So I'd love to hear what you have planned, or what you're seeing work year to date with the clinicking that Caraway and Company reps do.
Thanks. Yeah, we're actually heading back into to video, and we're going to go and again host it on our website. So we're getting together and we're going to video our clinics. If just again back to time, so that anytime, if a staff member has 10 minutes, they can pop on, watch a clinic on one of our brands, learn about our marketing strategy, and get back out there and get on the floor and talk to their customer and their community. It's really important, again, that we're utilizing this for our dealers and their community, and customizing it for the product that they're bringing in at the time. We're hoping to do some fun Zoom calls also, if there's the ability to do that. But again, back to making sure they're doing what's important first, is servicing their community and their customer, and being on the floor doing that with what they have. But yeah, we're gonna have some fun with it. We'll see how it turns out, and we're here, and they know us, and they're so important to us. So it's part of our community.
That ties in perfectly to what I was going to ask you, Darren, in terms of what Arc'teryx will be doing with clinicking going forward. You obviously have a rep force that I think comprises a lot of influencers in and of itself. So how are you planning to kind of let them loose to do their thing? How are you resourcing them?
Yeah, so we're going to provide them with as many tools and information that we can from the HQ and from our product team. But at the end of the day, I think Dana and Linda both touched on this. The relationship part of that clinicking experience is so important. And you can automate, you can script a lot of things, but you can't script a relationship or an authentic relationship. And so, we want those reps to take the assets, whether it's video or images or other anecdotal user stories. We want them to take that stuff and want them to use it where it makes sense, but we want them to do that while really bringing their own personality to that experience. We want them to speak directly to the shop employees. We want them to be accessible, and we want to as much as possible try to maintain that community that Linda talked about.
What I really love the most is over the years attending as many sales meetings as I have and my team has at Verde, a lot of the brands are worried about messaging continuity. And it's it's a strength that we have right now, that we're creating these assets and trusting that the reps will be the great messenger they are with the relationship they are. But it really creates that continuity. It's just built in now. And I think that's something also that we'll be able to carry forward. And then the ability to customize. So what I'm really hearing all of you say is enabling the reps as they get in front of their buyers to customize that message as much as they can is going to be key. So you're going to be creating these training tools and video assets. Make sure that they are bite-sized and able to be moved around and put into a rep presentation that's going to make sense for that rep to get the ball across the line. If you will just hang with me on the sports analogies there. But I just think that that's a very positive thing. And again, the clinicking will be really important. It may take a different shape. In the past, I've also heard brands say like maybe there's a fatigue around video training. Now that we've all gone through kind of the Zoom era, I think that people have an expectation that that's part of their day, and I don't think we should shy away from offering that. So that's something that I think we could maybe not wipe away as something that's part of the past, but I think people are just more open to video training, and they're willing to use it again and again if they need to relearn something. That's another thing that all of you have brought up, is just the ability to leverage your time and use these things as training tools for your team, let alone the shop sales floor people. So again, everything that we've talked about today really does focus on time. We do have it looks like we have a couple of questions that have come in, but not too many, but don't be shy, everybody. We're here to answer your questions. But really it comes back to creating solutions that are simple, that save time. One thing I'd love to just ask you, Dana, before we wrap up, you, in our rehearsal, you talked about how your agency created kind of a one-stop for your buyers. Can you talk about that a little bit before we wrap up here today?
We have our website that we've had forever. We basically were able to just make one more little dashboard on there, and for brand previews and brand clinics. And so we let everybody know, you just go to our website, click on the brand preview, and all of our brands are on there. And within that, you'll be able to get not only your videos, but also your brand content, your UPC codes, your digital workbook. And what's nice is that the dealer only has one password to go in. So it's a very simple way to get the information. So, and it's worked. And I've had people tell me, oh my gosh, Dana, you're still telling me the bad jokes, and I feel like you're right in front of me. I'm like, thanks, guys.
That's awesome. I wanted to make sure that, we brought that up because, again, this if you have an idea in your head that could be something that could make the buyer's job easier, less for them to manage up here, have more time to manage their business, that's the way to go. And patience is another one. All right, with that, I just want to thank each one of you for having the courage to come on here today and talk about your work in progress. We are all works in progress, and I just really applaud SIA for holding these town halls for us, for enabling us to come back and collaborate together. I also love that we talked about really struggling as a community around what we might be seeing in terms of like a race to the bottom and promotion. Let's really work hard together to try and save that from happening to us. That's the last thing we need. We need a big snow year, and we all need to be in alignment on that. So with that, it looks like we have a couple questions that have come in. So I'll go ahead and read the question, and then I'm just gonna file it over to one of our panelists. Okay, so Paul Dillman says he is curious as to how sales is uncovering new opportunities for new accounts during the pandemic for these great organizations and brands. Is that a focus at all for them? Any insight would be great. That's a great question. Which one of you would like to grab that one? I'm going to pick one of you. How about you, Dana?
Okay, First, it's important. No, I mean, it is important. What our team does every season is kind of, here's a certain amount of brands we'd like to get into. What was really great, I'm going to say on our site, is because we did have our multiple brands on there. There may have been a brand that, for some reason, maybe they're in the surf market, didn't know that we carried, and now they're interested in it because they were able to see it, our lineup of brands. We always like to respect everybody and understand, but we were able to cross different markets with the way that we handled our sell-in this season. So we actually did pick up some new business.
That's fantastic. I remember talking with you earlier in the season, Dana, where you were saying, like, with these video assets that your brands created and that you as a company created, you would have a way to leverage your time and potentially get in front of some new doors. So that's fantastic. Great. I can move on to the next question unless Darren or Linda has something they'd like to add there. Are we good? Okay. So this is from Anthony Duraco. Great to hear from you, Anthony. How have video presentations through Zoom or Teams worked, as we have seen some challenges in group meetings utilizing large videos effectively, especially with different broadband widths across individuals in the meeting? Everybody's nodding their head. You're not alone, clearly. So I would love for maybe one of the brands to answer this. Who wants to go?
Just making sure I was off mute this time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big challenge for sure. I mean, honestly, I don't see how that we're going to fully overcome some of these challenges, because the restrictions of technology just kind of are what they are to some extent. And, we can't necessarily impact or influence the type of internet connection that everyone is working on or has access to. It's just, to some extent, part of the situation that we're facing. I think what we can do as brands is just make sure that as much as possible, our sales reps are equipped and enabled, and that they have access to high quality broadband internet, that they're able to use their tools effectively. And then from that, if they can, at least from a presenter point of view, can have the right tools to start with, it does really make the process a lot more digestible. Things are, you can always send a video to somebody if their connection's not great and they are having difficulty viewing it. But if you're having trouble presenting it and you're not able to get your message across clearly, that's really where the biggest problem lies.
I also just wanted to quickly add in there, I was trying to do a live stream yesterday, and the person I was interviewing had 2 kids online in Zoom classrooms, and we had terrible bandwidth. So not that we can time that across the world in terms of a time when maybe the kids are not in school at home, but that is a real thing for fall. So consider that too. And also just always record. You can always record even a big keynote from the CEO and possibly break that down with a video editor if you need to tighten it up a little bit. But that's something else that people can refer to again and again, and think about people you're hiring within your organization. You could even say, hey, more people can attend the sales meeting than ever before. I mean, that's sort of a coveted thing I know that our client employee teams have had that not everybody gets to go to. So recording is another way around that. I know it's not ideal, but it's a good backup. So the last question that we have is from Paul Manders. Our brand is discussing the possibility of not having a physical workbook, but there is nervousness of losing some sales. What have your experiences been?
Oh, I'll take that one. This has been an ongoing, and I'm sure if anybody from my company is listening, they'll be laughing. It's been an ongoing conversation because in the snow industry, we're very worried about the environment, and these big fancy glossy catalogs that we produce are not environmentally friendly. So we've gone round and round, and we will be producing a catalog this year, but much more downsized. And what we're really focusing on, because we will be able to show so much product with great imagery online, we're working on just a VLP, a line plan that has every color laid out. It's a place for you to make your notes, but it's not a big glossy fancy catalog. But definitely we recognize that buyers need the tools to make their notes on and to utilize while they're seeing a line presentation. So that's what we're doing.
Yep, and to Dana's point also, a lot of them don't have multiple screens from which to work a meeting on. Darren, were you gonna add in?
I was going to add in, because we actually just went through this process that Linda was describing at Arc'teryx, and we got there for spring 21 sell-in. So we no longer have a centrally printed glossy workbook, and the process we went through is very, very similar to what Linda was describing, where we started with the big glossy workbook. We went down to a much more bare bones utilitarian experience, and now we're at a point where we don't have a centrally printed workbook anymore. And what we've done is we've replaced that with having obviously our B2B tool, but having a B2B tool that allows individual reps to really easily create a printed experience that's custom to their account. So if they're going into a meeting, they're able to create a small workbook experience that is only relevant to their business. So the models that they specifically need to be looking at, or that are relevant to them. And so we still have the option to print on a case-by-case basis, but it's a much more environmentally friendly and ultimately more like customized experience that, again, back to respecting the buyer's time, really helps them to focus in on the things that are going to be relevant and impactful for them.
Awesome. Those are the only questions that we had, and literally we're at 12:59. I am so proud of us. for getting all of that in. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to hand it back over to Maggie, and I can't wait to provide the follow-up. If you do have any questions, just fire them over our way, and I'll make sure to include your questions in our follow-up.
Thank you so much, Kristin. Also, Darren, Linda, and Dana for taking us through your experiences. I'd like to remind everybody to please join us next week to learn more about some of the technologies and tools we discussed today. The lineup that we have includes AvantLink, BrandLive, Centric, Elastic, Locally, New Order, and Quivers. Details can be found on the SIA website, which is snowsports.org. We have recorded this town hall and we'll be posting it on the SIA website tomorrow. So please feel free to share that with anybody who wasn't able to make it. Thanks again and stay healthy, and we hope to see everybody soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, thanks.